Hello! For my whole life, I've been a gamer. Any conceivable game that you can think of, whether it's Mario, FIFA, Rocket League, Halo, first-person shooters, any conceivable Lego game, I've probably played it. Probably racked up about 3,000 to 5,000 hours of it in my life. Basically, the only main disadvantage of gaming is that it takes up time. But how can you use that time in a productive way so that you can spend more time gaming without feeling guilty about it, and you can also progress in other areas of your life at the same time? So if you want to utilize gaming to the fullest potential so that you can really have fun while you're being productive, then stick around and I'll explain a bit about it. But if you're new here and you love fantasy, gaming, writing, reading, basically anything that involves escaping to another world, then consider subscribing and hitting the bell, and I'll keep you updated with future videos. So gaming is a phenomenon around the world. There's no surprise because it's just so fun. There's nothing quite like landing a 360 no-scope, landing a trick shot and faking out the whole defense in a game of whatever. And so basically, roughly for the last year, I've been doing something that has enabled me to get really high test scores because I've been able to utilize gaming. And this is what I did. So basically, no matter what job you have, even if it's a labor-intensive job, you should, and I think everybody should, devote a large amount of time to learning, whether it's learning about your craft, what you're doing, or just reading books to keep your mind sharp so that you can talk, you can communicate better, you can have conversations with people, and it means you can live life better, you can socialize better. So now that I've established that we need to devote a large amount of time, maybe at least 2 hours a day, to simply learning and developing a mind, which is like a daily process. I'm not saying that I'm anywhere near what I want to be, but it's like a daily process that you just do every day, like a habit. And the way that you can use gaming to do this is very clever, and I believe that it's somewhat genius. What I personally do is I stand up while I am gaming, because then when you're sitting down for like more than 4 hours a day, then it puts like a lot of pressure on your spine, and basically in the long term it's gonna completely destroy you physically and mentally probably. And so that's why I stand up, and that's why I go on runs and stuff. And then while I do that, I listen to my lectures or audiobooks. And it sounds so simple, but I don't see anyone doing it. And basically, you're just gaming while you're listening to all your revision stuff, all your teaching tapes, whatever you're listening to, whether it's lectures, whether you're a student, whether it's audiobooks if you want to be a writer, or whether it's just training for your job, whatever it is. You can just listen to it while you're gaming. And it really is as simple as that. But now you may be asking a lot of questions. How can you concentrate while playing games? How is it possible to focus on what you're listening to while you're gaming? How is that conceivably possible? Isn't it better to physically write notes down and actually learn it just by concentrating on the work rather than gaming at the same time? Isn't that a bit counterproductive? But no, I'm gonna explain why. It is possible to focus on the teaching, what you're listening to, but only if you play certain game modes. Now, every single game has a game mode, probably, where it's more like a free play. It's just you alone, and you're not playing against anyone. It's not competitive. You can't lose or win. It's just you and whatever you're doing. If it's in a first-person shooter, maybe it's just training, shooting at targets. Or if you're playing Rocket League, it's just you and the ball and the pitch and no one else that you're playing against. A lot of apps are like this. For example, the app Tiny Wings, where it's just you and you're playing as a bird and you're just racing. And when it's a racing game, it would just be you, the car, and just the open road. You're not racing against anyone. The key here is that it's not competitive. It's just you can't lose, you can't win. Those are the game modes that I'm talking about. And you're still playing the game, but it's more of an automatic thing. You're not really focusing intently on the game. Of course it's less immersive, but at least you're still playing the game and you can still get the fun from playing the game. But basically, this allows you to also concentrate on what you're listening to. And by doing this, I found that I can revise for longer, I can focus better on what I'm listening to, and it's more fun. So it's a win-win-win situation. But what about the question, is it better to physically take notes rather than play a game while listening to a teaching tape? Isn't it better to write down what you're learning in terms of solidifying it in your brain? And I would argue no, that is not the case. At least not from my experience and from the majority of people's experience. And my reasoning from this stems from this statement. You learn much less effectively when taking notes during a lecture compared to just listening to something and devoting your entire attention to it. And if you're playing a game in an automatic game mode, like I talked about, like a freestyle game mode where it's just you and you're not playing against anyone, then you can devote your entire attention to whatever you're learning. And I believe that if I listen to a lecture twice while gaming, then it's so much more effective than listening to a lecture, writing notes, and then probably missing what the lecturer is saying because you're writing notes, and then you have to listen to the lecture again and maybe again. And if you just listen to it once or twice and you really focus on everything that you're listening to, then it's a lot better. When I was revising for one of my psychology tests, the only way that I revised was by listening, and I took almost no notes. The only thing that I did was listen to all of the lectures twice, and this basically allowed me to get all of the information in my head rather than on a paper, because if you're making notes, that's basically what you're doing. You're putting all the information on a piece of paper rather than in your head. And so when I went into the exam, obviously I had all that information already, and so bam, 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 got all the questions, tick, 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 and I got 78, which is 8 points above the first, which is the highest grade that you can get. And I'm not trying to brag, I'm just trying to say that this is very effective, and it really does work very well. I believe that listening and learning while gaming is just a genius way to learn. It really is so effective, because gaming is fun, and if you combine it with revision, then it can make the revision fun as well. Just another thing that you might find, that when you start doing this, it can be hard at first, because you might find yourself focusing on the game more than listening, but most of the time, if you push through the first 10 minutes and you really get used to the game and you get used to the mechanics of the game, how it works, then it just becomes automatic, and then you can spend more time and more energy focusing on what you're listening to. And so the first 10, maybe 20 minutes of playing a game, if you're just playing it for the first time, is the hardest part. Thank you so much for watching. Give it a like if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.